This week, I asked Mike Norvell about what the Seminoles had done in the transfer portal, and he may have taken a little subtle shot at the Gators and Canes. We're going to talk about it today, so let's hang out. Richie, thanks for joining me. Okay, so Mike Norvell and I and a few other people sat down in a room on Sunday, and we were asking him about the transfer portal. We asked about the mix between high school and transfers every year that he anticipates. We'll talk about that in a moment. We asked about how much he's utilized the transfer portal, and he had a very interesting quote. He said this: a lot of teams use the transfer portal and take a lot more people than we do. We just hit on the right guys, and we just take the right guys. I thought that was interesting, and I thought, maybe a little bit of a subtle shot. I think that Norvell is maybe a little bit tired of getting dubbed just the portal guy, just the guy that only works in the portal, only takes guys from there. That's the only way to build a program that's not sustainable. When we asked him about it, that was his response, that we just hit on all our guys, and so you hear about it more. So thoughts there, or any big takeaways from him saying that?
Yeah, I think he has a history showing that he takes quality guys from the portal. You know, if you look at the 247 composite right now, Florida State was a 91.70 with 10 commits, so that ranks fifth. But no school above them had a higher average of quality of player. And both Miami and Florida took more guys from the portal. It's funny because everyone says Mike's the guy that relies on the portal. No, both Miami and Florida took more guys from the portal and had a lower average quality of player. I think that's a really big deal. And if you look at the history, just this past season, Florida State landed 15 players on the all ACC teams, first, second, third, or honorable mention. 10 of them were from the portal. So again, 66% of those players from the portal. His hit rate is ridiculous. And Florida State has 5 guys on Athlon's preseason All-America list, first, second, third, or fourth team. All 5 are portal guys, TJ. This is ridiculous what he's doing, how he identifies quality players. Even looking at guys like Johnny Wilson and Trey Benson, who people thought were lost causes at their previous schools. Now they're looking to be potential early round draft picks in the NFL draft. Mike Norvell has owned the portal, and there's no way anybody can say otherwise.
There's a false narrative out there, Richie, that you cannot compete for a championship using the portal. And Mike basically disagreed with that completely. We asked him, do you see this as a viable way to win and compete for championships? And he said, absolutely, because it just comes down to the individual. I asked him specifically, is there anything different you look for in portal guys versus high school kids? And he said, TJ, it's exactly the same. We're looking for the same exact qualities in portal guys as we are high schoolers. And he said, here's what it takes to build a champion, or here's what it takes to build a successful program. It's guys that buy in to the program, right? And if they've been in college for a year or they've been in high school for 4, whatever the situation is, we recruit the same guys. And it's no different from the high school level to the college level. We're not looking for these characteristics for high school. We're not looking for these characteristics for the transfer portal. It's the same to us. We look for the same exact qualities. We look for the same exact characteristics, and it doesn't change at all. What does change is the urgency, how quickly you have to get on them. I think that Mike Norvell and his staff's diligence and work and level of attention to detail is what helps them so much in the portal. I think their transparency, their honesty, obviously there's a lot of factors that kind of go into it, but he told me they will continue to look for the portal to kind of be just part of the recruiting process at this point. It was kind of just cool to see his mentality on that. And again, he gets labeled the portal king. We love what they do in the portal, this, that, and the other, but his hit rate is higher than anyone else's in the country. And he's right. They get the right guys. They've pulled a lot this cycle. Who are you excited about seeing this upcoming year from the portal cycle that we just kind of went through?
Yeah, just going back to Mike's time at Memphis, he loves to use his tight ends, man. Kyle Morlock and Jaheim Bell are the 2 big ones that stand out to me. I just I don't know how you're going to defend this offense. And when you again, all transfers, your quarterback Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, your running back, your receivers, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, who I'm really excited about, Jaheim Bell in the slot, or lined up at tight end. All these guys are transfers, so again, it fits the theme. But man, this is going to be a really tough offense to defend, and that would not be possible without the portal. And defensively, I'm really excited to see Fentrell Cypress. I know he didn't have the spring that a lot of Florida State fans had hoped for. This was his fourth spring in college. I don't blame him too much. I expect big things out of him. He's one of the preseason All-Americans on Athlon, who, again, Florida State took from an in-conference foe in Virginia. Yeah, man, there's just a lot to be excited about just talking transfer portal guys, and a heck of a lot more to be excited about beyond that.
All right, I want to talk about the ratio that Mike talked about from high school to transfer recruiting in just a minute, but I want to give some love to our friends over at Garnet and Gold. You can go to garnetandgold.com right now, and you can order any of their elite FSU merch, whether it's the Nike stuff, the Columbia stuff, you're looking to support NIL, our student athletes, whatever you are looking for, make sure that you're shopping at Garnet and Gold. Use code NOSLAW, that's NOSLAW, to get 15% off of your order. Appreciate Garnet and Gold for their support. All right, so when I asked Mike about the percentage of high school to transfer recruiting, he basically just said there's again, this narrative out there that it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And he said that's going to change every single year. And there really is no set plan. Like maybe he's got an idea in his mind of, hey, we'd like to do this, we'd like to do that. But at the end of the day, you've just got to do what's best for your roster that offseason. I think that people want to say, oh, we should always take this many high schoolers and we should always take this many transfers. And he didn't mention this player by name because I don't think he had been announced just yet. But essentially, if you had a hard set number and you said, like, this is what we're taking from a high school perspective and a transfer perspective, and you don't have any flexibility there, maybe that doesn't afford you a chance to go out and get a guy like Keon Coleman, who Florida State just pulled in, who wasn't a need. Florida State didn't need to go out and land the best wide receiver in the portal. But because of how good they are and because of what they can offer from an NIL perspective, from a winning perspective, from a coaching and quarterback perspective, they were able to go out and land a dynamic athlete who's going to help their offense a ton. It's pretty impressive what they're able to go out and do when they need somebody, when they need a Jared Verse to replace a Jermaine Johnson, when they need offensive linemen to replace guys going to Dylan Gibbons and others that left, when they need defensive ends or defensive linemen to replace guys. But it's pretty cool to see what they can do when they just want a guy, when it's not a need, but they just want to get better with Keon Coleman.
Yeah, and I think Mike's one of his biggest assets has been how he's adapted to the new landscape of college football. Because 5 years ago, we're not talking about NIL, the transfer portal. You don't have the extra COVID year, which a lot of people don't talk about, which has afforded guys like Jordan Travis and others a chance to return to Florida State this year. He has just adapted to times, and that's a great thing if you're a Florida State fan to see it. He doesn't have a set way. In the past, even going back to Jimbo, he was a phenomenal recruiter. But there were times he'd have to take a guy out of high school who we kind of all knew would never contribute. You don't have to do that anymore. Let me go find someone in the portal who's proven they can at least contribute at the college level. And I'm not guessing on this guy, and it's not going to take a ton of time to try and develop him into a player or a contributor. And I just think how he's adapted to the new landscape of college football has been amazing, because you see guys like Dabo Sweeney kind of pushing back on that, not wanting to hit the portal. But Mike's has taken it, almost by necessity, because the roster he took over was terrible. There's no way around it. And now he's built it into a team that is favored in Vegas to win the ACC championship in just 3 full seasons heading into year 4. That's a massive feat, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the narrative out there that, it's got to be high school, it's got to be – the big difference to me is what Norvell has done such a good job of is getting guys for multiple years. And, obviously Jermaine just came in and played 1 year. Cypress is going to be here 1 year. Byers is going to be here 1 year based on being, graduated and stuff like that. But I think that the big key of getting guys for 2 years does make it sustainable. When you recruit somebody out of high school, most of the time, you're only getting 2 years of elite level production from them. You're very rarely getting 3+ years of elite production from anyone. You think about anybody on the offense and defensive line, they almost always have to sit out that entire first year, if not more. You think about even guys that are transcendent athletes, like obviously Jameis redshirted, so you only got 2 years out of him. Dalvin Cook didn't start playing a ton until about week 6 or 7. So you did get 2.5 years out of Dalvin. But most players, you are truly just getting 2 years out of them. Or you may get more. You may get 3 above average years, but you're not Kelvin Benjamin, you got about 1.5 years out of. Rashad Green, you probably got 2.5 years out of. He was really, really good 2012 on. So I think there are exceptions to that, but most elite level players, and certainly anybody that's not elite coming out of the high school level, you're not getting that full. There's a misconception that you're getting 4 years out of them somehow. That's just not the case. You're getting guys out of the portal that are playing 2 years because they've already been developed elsewhere. And so I do think it's sustainable. Now, what does make it tough is when you're balanced, you don't know who's going into the portal. You don't know what positions are going to be available. Obviously, Florida State has a safety need right now that they could really use somebody just absolutely crazy elite jumping into the portal. That doesn't seem like it's happening at this moment. We'll see if somebody does. So it is a gamble. It is a risk because the portal's not always going to have those players. But sometimes you've got a weak safety or wide receiver or running back class in high school too. So yeah, I think that kind of risk always exists. So I don't know. I think that, is it sustainable? I mean, Mike Norvell certainly seems to think it is. He's certainly done a good job of flipping the roster, and we'll see from there. But I think that if you're getting multiple years out of guys in the portal, then it absolutely is continuing to be sustainable. Now, Florida State next year is going to need to go out and land a cornerback in the portal, right? That's just what they're going to need to do with Cypress leaving. Who knows if Renardo Green is back again. So I think that could be something that Florida State's got to look at. Defensive end, well, they'll have Pat Payton there, but what happens at that position, right? Defensive tackle, you're going to lose both Fabo and Fisk. Are Jackson and Farmer and Ayo ready to step up and be your starters? Do you have to go get depth there? So that's kind of, well, what if that defensive tackle class next year isn't very good? What does the offensive line look like if 3 or 4 guys leave? So, yeah, there are questions there, but I will tell you, I'd rather have Mike Norvell kind of leading that portal charge than anybody else in the country right now at this point.
Yeah, and does any school have a better pitch to guys in the portal than Florida State with the proven success we've had? Obviously Jermaine Johnson's the bell cow, right? He was a depth piece at Georgia, and Georgia's ridiculously talented, so that makes sense. But he comes to Florida State for 1 year, and he's a first rounder, and he already has a brick right outside of Doak.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that the portal can do. And, again, going back 5 years ago, I would be looking at next year like, oh boy, we're going to be in trouble, 6-6. But no, you can go in the portal and fill these holes with instant contributors and allow your young guys to continue to develop. And that's exactly what you want. I just think the portal has completely changed the game in college football. And, Mike Norvell, Lane Kiffin's certainly embraced it. But I think you're going to see guys like, even Kirby and Saban start saying, all right, this high 4-star is not working out. Let's work him out, and let me go get this guy from Central Michigan who everybody missed on, who's going to be an All-American. I just think that's where, as it currently stands, the future of college football is, because the portal is it's the great equalizer, right? I think you're going to see some teams go from 6-6 to looking for a playoff spot in the 12-team playoff strictly out of the portal. I think it's that possible. It wasn't long ago Louisville won a national championship in basketball that was since been vacated, but all 5 starters were transfers that were new to the team that year. I think we're not going to get to that extreme in college football, but everybody better be prepared, and Florida State fans sleep easy at night because Mike Norvell is prepared for that.
Yeah, it's really an innovative concept, and you're going to continue to see it evolve and develop, and maybe things change with the portal. Maybe things do get different, but I do think Mike Norvell did a good job. Maybe again out of necessity. I'll give him the credit of saying he's a visionary, but maybe there's a chance he just had to do it out of necessity and kind of struck gold. And you buy a scratch off and you hit the lotto once, and you say like, hey, I need to keep playing this. So anyway, I don't know. I think that he obviously was one of the first to jump on this trend. And again, where else would you go if you're a transfer? Obviously, Tallahassee offers a lot of great things for young men and young college athletes, but you're also going to a place where you have been developed and you've seen people be developed. And so Florida State has a lot to offer from that perspective. We've got a lot of questions on just who Florida State may go after, who they may target in the portal. I asked Mike about that, and he essentially said, look, we're not going to reach for anybody. We're very comfortable with where our roster is. If somebody was to enter the portal that we thought could make an impact on our team, we may reach out and we may go get them. If not, if there's not anybody that enters, and there's questions about a FAU safety that just went in, obviously that happened last night, so haven't gotten any kind of word if Florida State's pursuing or not. But he said we're not going to reach. And so if you trust this coaching staff's evaluations, if you trust them bringing in talent, looking at talent and who they offer, who they don't offer, if they offer somebody, then they're not reaching, right? Is essentially what he said. We're not going to go out and fill spots just to fill spots. We've got some walk-ons that could essentially earn some scholarships this offseason. So I think that those would kind of be how you fill out your last few roster spots. If somebody really elite jumps in, I think the staff will go after him and try and pick him up. So, hey, we do a lot more discussing college football and really just everything that you could imagine down in our Discord. There's a link to that below. We've also got a video that we did on Florida State and Clemson potentially looking to leave the ACC. You can click the button on the screen now to watch that. Thank you guys for hanging out. Richie, thanks for hanging out, and go Noles.